Her stepmother was jealous of her hair, but the prince loved her with all his heart. She was the kind of girl whose beauty lit up every room she walked into. Her long, dark hair wasn't just hair, it was her identity, her crown. When the wind played with her locks, it looked like a dance of shadows and grace. Her face carried an innocence that couldn't be ignored, and her inner light made people pause and admire. She never tried to stand out, but she always did. And that's exactly what made her stepmother burn with jealousy. The stepmother had never felt truly warm toward the girl, but everything changed the day the prince laid eyes on her. It wasn't just a glance, it was a quiet moment that said everything without words. His gaze lingered, his smile softened, and from that instant the stepmother knew her fears were real. She wasn't afraid of the girl's beauty, she was terrified of her power, the silent, effortless pull that drew others in, even royalty. Every time someone praised the girl, the stepmother felt like she was shrinking. Every compliment, every kind word toward her stepdaughter chipped away at her pride. And the worst part? The girl had no idea. She carried herself with grace, unaware of the storm brewing in her stepmother's heart. That unbothered innocence became another reason for resentment. The stepmother didn't just envy the beauty, she despised the purity behind it. It wasn't about the prince alone. It was about losing control, about being overshadowed in her own home. The palace walls began whispering a future the stepmother couldn't accept. A future where the prince would choose this girl, where she would rise even higher in status, where love would crown her more than looks ever could. The stepmother couldn't bear see someone she considered beneath her being lifted above. The more the prince admired her, the deeper the stepmother's hatred grew. What had started as jealousy soon twisted into obsession. The stepmother began measuring her worth against the girl's reflection. Every strand of hair, every smile, every word from the prince's lips became a reminder of her own fading relevance. This wasn't just a rivalry, it was silent warfare. And in her mind, there was only one way to win: destroy what made the girl special. Her beauty had to be erased, even if it meant hurting her, especially if it meant hurting her. The love that bloomed between the girl and the prince became the stepmother's curse. What was a blessing for one turned into torment for another. And in that torment, the stepmother made a cruel decision. She wouldn't let the girl outshine her anymore. She wouldn't let those beautiful strands remain a symbol of power, admiration, and love. In the darkness of her envy, she decided it was time to take it all away. Jealousy, when left to fester, often turns into cruelty. The stepmother's envy had reached its peak, and with it came a dangerous sense of resolve. She no longer saw the girl as her husband's daughter or a young woman with dreams. She saw her as a threat that needed to be erased. To the stepmother, the girl's beauty wasn't a blessing. It was a weapon that had stolen attention, admiration, and now even the affection of a prince. And so, she made her choice. If beauty was the source of her pain, it would have to be destroyed. The girl's hair had always been the symbol of her grace, admired by all who saw her. Long, thick, and dark like a river at night, it flowed past her waist, capturing the light and envy of everyone around. It wasn't just hair, it was the embodiment of her identity, of her quiet confidence and natural charm. To lose it would be more than a physical change. It would feel like a part of her soul being stripped away. The act was simple, yet the impact was devastating. In one brutal moment, the stepmother took what the girl had never imagined losing. She believed that by cutting off the girl's hair, she would take away the magic, the appeal, the reason for the prince's gaze. It was punishment disguised as revenge. She wanted the girl to feel small, to look in the mirror and see someone unworthy, someone forgotten. The goal wasn't just to shame her, it was to break her spirit. But cruelty has a way of revealing more about the person who inflicts it than the one who suffers from it. In trying to humiliate the girl, the stepmother exposed the depth of her own insecurity. She believed beauty lived only in appearances, in surface perfection. She failed to understand that true beauty, real, lasting beauty, lives in how a person carries themselves even when everything is taken from them. For the girl, waking to find herself changed was a silent heartbreak. It was the kind of loss that couldn't be easily explained. There was no blood, no visible wound, yet she felt deeply violated. A part of her innocence had been stolen in the dead of night, not just her hair. It was a betrayal from within her own home, and it left a wound that words couldn't heal. What the stepmother didn't realize was that love, the kind of love the prince had begun to feel, does not hinge on outer beauty. It is not held by strands of hair or weakened by a lack of adornment. Love, when it is real, sees beyond the superficial. It holds on when appearances fade. And in attempting to destroy the girl's charm, the stepmother only ended up proving how shallow her own understanding of love truly was. The court was abuzz with whispers. A girl once admired for her striking beauty now walked the palace halls changed. Her flowing hair, once the subject of admiration and envy, was gone, replaced by silence and questions. The stepmother waited for the prince to turn away, to hesitate, to feel the sting of disappointment. But what she hadn't accounted for was the kind of love that isn't skin deep. When the prince learned of what had happened, his heart didn't waver. His feelings weren't anchored to the girl's appearance, they were rooted in something far deeper. Her absence of vanity, her gentle strength, her quiet kindness, these were the things that had drawn him in from the beginning. Hair, while beautiful, was never the reason for his affection. What had captivated him was her soul, unchanged and unshaken. People expected him to be stunned, perhaps even disillusioned. Many believed beauty was a requirement for royal favor, that appearances built the foundation of royal unions. But the prince thought differently. He knew that outward beauty fades and what remains is character. And in the girl he saw a strength that could not be cut away, a beauty that no blade could erase. His decision was swift, but it wasn't made in haste. He stood by her, not out of pity, but out of unwavering respect and love. The absence of her hair only highlighted her grace under pressure, her dignity in the face of cruelty. Where others saw loss, he saw resilience. Where others saw change, he saw truth. This choice challenged everything the court had grown used to. For generations, beauty had been treated as currency in royal alliances. Daughters were groomed for perfection, judged on elegance and charm. But the prince's decision defied tradition. He chose not what pleased the eye, but what moved the heart. He silenced every murmur with his resolve and made it clear that his love wasn't up for public approval. The girl, though visibly transformed, carried herself with quiet poise, and that poise only deepened his admiration. He saw in her someone who had endured humiliation without bitterness, who had lost something precious, but kept her spirit intact. That kind of beauty, he believed, was eternal. By standing beside her, the prince sent a message not just to the court, but to the kingdom. Love is not measured in strands of hair or surface beauty, it's measured in loyalty, courage, and the ability to love without condition. In a world obsessed with appearance, his decision became a symbol of something rare, a love that didn't need to be decorated to be real. The The stepmother, who had hoped to destroy the girl's worth, was instead forced to watch her rise higher, this time not because of her hair, but because of the heart that shone brighter than ever. True love, after all, isn't blind. It simply sees what others overlook. The world expected anger. After betrayal, after humiliation, after something so personal had been taken from her, many thought she would demand justice, public, harsh, unforgettable. But instead of revenge, she chose something rarer, something that left an even deeper mark: forgiveness. Forgiveness wasn't a sign of weakness. It was a conscious act of strength, a decision not to let cruelty define her future. In choosing to forgive, she reclaimed control of her pain, her dignity, and her story. She didn't speak ill of her stepmother. She didn't expose her or seek punishment. She simply let the weight go. That grace did more damage to the stepmother than any form of retaliation ever could. The stepmother, who had once acted out of insecurity, now faced a mirror she couldn't escape. No one shouted at her, no one banished her, but the silent strength of the girl's forgiveness became her greatest judgment. It exposed the pettiness of her jealousy and the hollowness of her act. The palace, once filled with gossip, grew quiet, not out of fear, but out of respect for the girl's courage. As for the prince, his admiration only deepened. He had already chosen her not for her beauty, but for the kindness and honesty that had always set her apart. Her decision to forgive, not to hurt back, not to fall into bitterness, proved that she was not just someone to love, but someone to respect. It was this grace under pressure, this strength cloaked in softness, that convinced him he had made the right choice. Their union was not grand because of glitter or spectacle. It was grand because it was real. The prince married her not because she had once been beautiful, but because her soul had remained beautiful despite everything. And through their